Monster Synthesis Master. 71 Chapter 71, Incoming Pressure. Link's palm absorbed the soul lamp and soul essence completely, leaving nothing behind. The hand that was in contact with the hound started to bleed and wrapped around the hound. Incubation time of the blood cocoon, 40 minutes. 40 minutes, the same time as Fu's synthesis yesterday. After so many attempts, Link also noticed a small detail. Once the success rate exceeded 100%, the quality of the creature would be raised by a level. Now that the soul lamp and soul essence were both dark green quality, the success rate was 110%. The new creature that he would synthesize would definitely be blue superior quality. Fu, you can go out. I'll come out to find you later. Okay, boss, I'll go out and make you breakfast, Fu nodded repeatedly. 40 minutes was neither too long nor too short. While waiting, Link did not stay idle. He walked to the front of the mutated wolf cage and tried to communicate with it. However, the mutated wolf was extremely irritable. It kept baring its teeth and even gnawed at the iron cage, trying to break free. In the end, Lin Ke was left with no choice. As expected, if he wanted to tame a level 10 mutated wolf, he would have to first beat it into submission. Previously, the highest level creature that Link had tamed was the Desert Army Ant. It was only because the Desert Army Ant Queen did not have any offensive abilities that he was able to tame it successfully. The other creatures were not aggressive and could communicate. In the end, when it came to the real wild beasts in the wilderness, this trick did not work. It seemed that reasoning and bribery would not work, so he could only strike with a heavy fist and beat them until they were convinced. But Link didn't have any suitable materials on hand, so he saved them for this beating. Time flew. Link sat on the chair and stared at the blood cocoon. Soon, the blood cocoon began to move. However, unlike the other creatures that had torn open the blood cocoon before, the blood cocoon began to disappear. Then Link saw the flames in the hound's body. It was a burning skeleton. The flames on the hound not only melted the blood cocoon, but also began to melt the solid iron cage. The hound that was originally trembling in the middle of the wild bosses was now baring its teeth, and its eyes were burning with flames. It was extremely domineering. The mutated wolves, lions, and tigers in the nearby cages were all curled up in the corners of the cages, losing their former domineering aura of the jungle. Monster attributes. Name, Hellhound. Quality, blue. Race, dog. Attribute, fire element affinity. Level, 12. Initial skill 1, Flaming Form LV1, Hellhound activates Flaming Form, its entire body is engulfed in hellfire, dealing 8 damage to enemies within a 2-meter radius every second. Lasts for 5 minutes, cooldown time, 12 hours. Initial skill 2, Soul Judgment LV1, the flames from the Hellhound's eyes contain the essence of hell. Anyone who is stared at by the Hellhound's eyes will be reminded of their evil deeds and their soul will be judged, causing 200 true damage. Cooldown time, 1 day. Evaluation, I represent hell to judge you. You're guilty, woof. Hellhound, turn off your flame form. Link ordered after looking at the Hellhound's data. The flames on the Hellhound's body gradually extinguished, and flesh and blood gradually grew out of its skeleton body, returning to its original appearance. Many parts of the iron cage had been melted by the hellfire, and the other parts of the iron cage were also distorted under the high temperature. The Hellhound squeezed out of the twisted cage and ran to Link with its tongue out. The Hellhound's normal appearance was the same as a hound before the fusion. It had brownish-yellow fur, and its ears and back gradually turned black. It was 70 centimeters tall and close to a meter in length. Its body looked very majestic. Link sat on the chair with his legs crossed. Beside him, the Hellhound squatted on the ground obediently, sticking out its tongue and enjoying Link's touch. The Hellhound's appearance was very confusing. Link looked at it for a long time, but he couldn't find any difference between it and the hound in its normal state. Others would only think that it was an ordinary hunting dog. The treasure-hunting mouse stuck its head out of Link's pocket and curiously sized up its dangerous new partner. Squeak! The treasure-hunting mouse tried to bark at the hellhound. The hellhound was also very curious when it saw the little thing in its master's pocket. Its instinct made it feel that the two of them shared the same bloodline, and there was a natural sense of closeness between them. The hellhound carefully put its sharp nose close to the treasure-hunting mouse and sniffed its body. The treasure-hunting mouse also tried to poke the hellhound's meaty black nose with its small claws. After that, he boldly climbed out of his pocket and climbed up the hellhound's nose onto its head. Looking at the happy scene of his pets, Link's lips curled up. He really wanted to say, life was worth it. He led the hellhound out of the basement. Just as he reached the lounge area, third brother ran over in a hurry, his face filled with the word grave. "Boss, something happened." Link's expression remained the same. He gestured for third brother to continue. "The White Crane Hall has given all of our territories to the three sects around us, and they have also emphasized that we must pay the rent at the end of the month on time." Link furrowed his brows. He didn't think that White Crane Hall would still dare to make a move after being warned by the military last night. Do our brothers know about this news now? Link glanced at the hatchet men and found that they were all busy with their own things. They seemed to be in a normal mood. Number 3 shook his head slightly. "It's a call from the office this morning." "Boss, you're not awake yet." "I picked up the phone. They told us to make arrangements over the phone. The other three sects will come to take over the territory after 4 in the afternoon. Come in and talk." Link and third brother entered the office and closed the door before starting to talk about it. "Third brother, what do you think?" Link didn't show any emotion on his face. Instead, he asked for third brother's opinion. The third brother was filled with righteous indignation, but he was helpless. "Boss, although the military warned White Crane Hall yesterday, they're now using an open scheme. The Jack Gang has always been under the White Crane Hall. Now that the White Crane Hall has decided to take over their territory and give it to another gang, it's reasonable. Outsiders can't find any fault with it. The wildlife market hasn't been very good in the past 2 years. Sometimes, the animals shipped in aren't very good, and we can't gather enough for the monthly supply by the end of the month. Before this, they had to rely on the territory and the protection fees. Now that the territory has been taken away, it's too difficult to earn 300,000 yuan per month by selling wild animals. What will happen if we can't complete the monthly payment?" In his previous life, Link had only treated these small guilds as ATM machines and had never thought of running them. He only had an impression of the scale of the forces and knew little about the internal operations of the guilds. "If you can't complete the monthly payment, you'll be criticized at best, or you'll be replaced by a new boss." "Boss, this is the White Crane Hall's plot. They first cut off our territory, so that we have no extra source of income, and then they took advantage of the fact that we can't gather enough monthly tributes to dismiss the leader of the Jack Gang." The third brother's 5 features were twisted together. This time, White Crane Hall did not use force, but instead followed the sect's internal rules, so others could not find any evidence. This drastic plan must have been thought up by Sun Shu, the second of the 13 tycoons of White Crane Hall. How ruthless! The third brother racked his brain but still couldn't think of a way to crack it. There was still a week to the end of the month, and the Jack Gang only had a few 100,000 in cash. It wasn't difficult to raise 300,000 yuan this month, but if he did that, he wouldn't have any extra money to buy wild animals next month. If there were no wild animals, there would be no income and he would still be fired. "Boss, what do we do now?" The third brother looked like he was about to die. He racked his brains but still couldn't think of a way to break this move. Link, on the other hand, was calm. "That's it. Don't worry about the revenue. Third brother, your main task now is to call back the brothers outside, tell them the news, and calm them down. I'll tell you the direction of the Jack Gang in the future when I come back at noon. "Boss, you're going out again." "I still need to go to the Platinum Hotel," said Link, nodding. "But don't worry, it'll be faster today." Number 3 knew that his boss had his own way of doing things, so he nodded to show that he would make arrangements for the gang. Link then patted the hound's head and said, "In the future, it will be responsible for guarding the house of the Jack gang. If anyone approaches the Jack gang, it will give a warning. You just have to be careful." First, there was the sand eagle and the treasure-hunting mouse. Today, when he woke up, he saw the white-headed sea eagle sleeping soundly outside. Now, there was the hound. Third brother knew that his boss was very good at taming animals. These animals that had been tamed by him were all very obedient and were not afraid of people at all. After eating the breakfast Afu made, Link whistled as he left the house. The usually lazy sand eagle was ecstatic. It took off from the scrap paper box at lightning speed and went into Ghost Fire V8 to wait for orders. Link had never seen it so enthusiastic. As for the white saber sea condor, it cawed a few times in its nest, meaning to tell the sand condor to go and return early. Tisk, tisk, tisk. You see, people with families are really different. He stepped on the gas and headed to the underground black market. The Sand City was very big, but the news spread even faster. The 200,000 gold bounty was very attractive. For killers and bounty hunters who made a living by killing and doing things, it was definitely a fat piece of meat. However, last night, the news that a large number of White Crane Hall's hitmen were being detained by the military was suddenly released. It was obvious that there was a connection between Link and the military in Chitu. This made many killers who were ready to take on orders to retreat. In Shandu, it was not a big problem to provoke a gang. If they offended the underground black market, the other party would give them a wanted reward. However, if you offend the military of Shandu, you're finished. Not to mention the special forces of the guards in Shudu, the elite of the elite. Link had the painters, the Suanwu Hall, and now the Shitu military behind him. The waters were too deep, and many people began to consider whether it was worth the risk for 200,000 yuan. Link stopped the car at the entrance of the dark alley and brought Fu into the black market. In the morning, most of the shops in the underground black market had not opened yet, and there were only a few people. At the entrance of the Platinum Hotel, Link took out the head of the assassin from last night from Afu's enhancement bag. "Afu, it's still the same. Wait for me at the rest area." With that, Link strolled into the Platinum Hotel with the killer's head in his hand. As soon as they entered the hotel, everyone's eyes fell on Link. Chapter 72 An insignificant suggestion. When the attendant at the Platinum Hotel saw Link, his eyes widened and his face was filled with shock. Link still dared to come to the Platinum Hotel at a time like this. Wasn't he just walking right into a trap? But the next second, the attendant saw the head in Link's hand, and his heart skipped a beat. "This ancestor is here to provoke us." Link walked straight into the Platinum Hotel and smiled at Thomas, who was standing straight at the front desk. Thomas returned the smile and looked at the head in Link's hand. Thomas knew every assassin in the Platinum Hotel in Shadu. The one in Link's hand was also an impressive assassin. Pure human genes, proficient in all kinds of firearms and combat. Unfortunately, it had now become Link's bounty and stepping stone. Thomas watched Link's back as he left, the corners of his mouth curling up. Interesting. He had a gold bounty on his head, yet he still dared to come to the Platinum Hotel. The killer's head in his hand was clearly a warning to the other killers and bounty hunters who were ready to make a move. In the lobby of the Platinum Hotel, there were many assassins sitting in the rest area reading the newspapers and news. When they saw Link, they all put down the newspapers in their hands and stared at the head in his hand. The moment Link entered the Platinum Hotel, a dozen pairs of eyes were fixed on him. They only looked away when Link entered the elevator. After entering the underground exchange, Link put on the mask. However, it didn't seem to matter whether he wore the mask or not. As soon as he entered the underground exchange, many eyes were focused on him. The others wished they could put their heads in wooden boxes and cover them with black cloth, for fear that others would recognize them. Link, on the other hand, was different. He held the head in his hand as if he was afraid that no one would know his identity. It was obvious that this move had succeeded. The dead assassin was not an ordinary person, but an old bird proficient in firearms. If this guy couldn't even deal with Link, then some of the more arrogant assassins would have to be more careful and consider whether they had the ability to kill Link. Link walked straight to the trading counter and placed his head on it. Check his identity and collect all the rewards. The trader placed the head on the scanner and could not help but sneak a few more glances at Link. Very quickly, the information and bounty for the killer appeared on the electronic screen. Link immediately saw 3 bounties with a cumulative bounty of $50,000. Transfer all the money to my card. Your bank card ending with 2334 has been deposited with 50,000 wasteland coins at 10:23 on April 19. Your current balance is 207,550 wasteland coins. After receiving the message, Link left the underground exchange. As soon as he left, whispers could be heard in the exchange. The dealer next to him suddenly leaned over with a mysterious look. "Hey, is that the one?" The dealer nodded vigorously, indicating that it was that guy. "Oh my god, I thought that with a gold bounty on my head, even if this guy didn't go into hiding, he definitely wouldn't come to the Platinum Hotel again. You see, so many people's gazes have changed. It's easy for him to come to the Platinum Hotel this time, but it'll be difficult for him to leave the underground black market." Link took the elevator to the bank's vault on the 4th floor. "Hello, I want to access the account with the ID 2200. Sir, please follow me." Soon, the staff member brought Link to the storage room. Link took out the mysterious key and opened the storage room door. The staff member then left with a smile. As soon as he entered the storage room, Link's shaking butt disappeared. What followed was countless guns. It was like a small armory. The gun rack on the wall had everything from pistols to submachine guns, assault rifles, and finally sniper rifles. In addition, there were all kinds of combat equipment, arranged in different categories, looking quite neat and imposing. It was clear that the assassin Link had killed was a Virgo. Did this guy use all his rewards and commission to collect firearms? Link couldn't help but exclaim. The firearms here were enough to arm the Jack gang 3 times. Link suddenly opened the door of the storage room and stuck his head out. He looked at the back of the staff and shouted, "I need a helper to come in and help me move my things." 5 minutes later, when Fu entered the storage room, his mouth was so wide open that a fist could be stuffed in. "Boss, why are there so many guns here?" "All right, stop sighing. Can you pack everything here and take them away?" Fu nodded and patted his shoulder confidently. "Don't worry, boss. No one knows how to use the bag space better than me." All the guns in the room were stuffed into Ah Fu's backpack, and the storage room was emptied. After coming out of the room, Ah Fu was still sighing. "If it wasn't for the small space in the bag, I would have moved the shelves back too." Link returned to the 1st floor and was about to leave when Thomas stopped him. "Mr. Lin, we have a new project here. Would you like to try it out?" Link raised an eyebrow. "Isn't the Platinum Hotel the most rigid and inflexible place? When did it become so trendy and have a new project?" Thomas smiled awkwardly. "We stick to tradition, but we can't be eliminated by the new era. Don't you think so? Tell me, what's the new project?" Thomas took out his phone and showed Lin Ke a new app. He said, "We've just launched a new app that provides all kinds of news every day. You can also take orders directly from the mobile app, which saves you the trouble of going to the Platinum Hotel." Platinum Hotel's guide. Thomas was stunned for a moment, then he smiled embarrassedly. "As expected of Mr. Lin, you already know." Thomas explained, "At the moment, this software is still being promoted on a small scale. So, we would like to invite Mr. Lin to do a test with us. If you have any good opinions or suggestions, you can also leave a message. Once it is adopted, we will also give you an omniscient coin reward. Lin Ke had already known about this software in his previous life, but he did not expect it to be launched at this time. In his previous life, after the game was officially released, Platinum Hotel Guide was one of the mobile apps that many bounty hunter players would use every day. It was known as the financial god. Not only could he receive orders online, but he could also recommend nearby bounty services and missions based on his location uploaded to his phone. Alright, help me install one. Link's phone wasn't like the artist's antique 9-button phone. Although the screen wasn't big, it was still a colored smartphone. After Thomas finished installing the phone, he handed it to Link with both hands. Mr. Lin, the software has been installed. We look forward to your review. Lin Ke glanced at the Platinum Hotel style app that had just appeared on his phone. He entered the software and found that both the UI and the design were rather simple. However, its functions were almost complete. It was not much different from what Link remembered. The My menu contained his information and bounty. Nearby referred to the bounties and missions nearby. Orders referred to the bounties and missions that had been accepted, as well as the information of bounties that had been completed. The three categories were clear at a glance. For the privacy of our customers, we will block the mission signal in the underground black market. Only when we leave the underground black market will the signal be restored and we will see the nearby bounty missions. Thomas explained. I suggest that you add a setting to the nearby options. You can let assassins and bounty hunters freely choose the difficulty of the mission and create a screening function. This way, you can accurately find the mission you want. Of course, since it's the Platinum Hotels app, there's naturally the betting industry. Whether a mission can be completed or not depends on your life. I think you guys know more about this than I do. Also, you can also do some value-added services in the future and set up an online shopping mall. For example, weapons and equipment distribution, technical support, and so on. I believe that there will be a huge market for them. The last one. It's time for the programmers to learn some art, said Lin Ke after a moment of hesitation. I think the UI can be made better. Thomas had been expecting a good review from Link, but he did not expect him to actually give a suggestion. Thomas looked confused at first, but after a moment of thought, he came to a realization. His eyes gradually lit up as he found that Link's suggestions were all very useful. He was amazed. Thomas clapped his hands and cheered. The more he thought about these ideas and creativity, the more he felt that they were amazing. Thank you for your advice, Mr. Lin. I didn't expect you to have such extraordinary attainments in mobile apps. I'll definitely submit your suggestions. As for the reward, I'll arrange it for you now. No rush, said Link, raising a hand to stop Thomas. Just transfer the money to my account after the virtual currency is launched. I'll follow your arrangements, Mr. Linear. As Link and Fu left the Platinum Hotel, many assassins and bounty hunters in the hall put down their newspapers and found excuses to leave. Thomas saw everything, but he didn't care. He returned to his front desk, put on his signature smile, and waited for the members to check in. By the way, did you guys know that the new boss of the Jack Gang, Link, is actually inextricably linked to the military? Hey, young man, you don't understand. Link saved the life of Commander Mun's only son. This is a very close relationship. An old man's firm voice immediately attracted the attention of many people. Link glanced at it and narrowed his eyes. Hey, isn't it a coincidence? It's always the same old man with a small folding stool bragging. My lord, it's you again? How did you know? Sir System pouted. Look at what you're saying. If you asked for other people's information, I might not know. But I know everything about Link. Why don't you tell me? I have to start from a few days ago. Commander Mun's son was kidnapped by thugs and Link didn't get along with them. He killed the thugs and saved Commander Mun's son's life, and that's how they met. Last night, Link was also invited to the Sunset Cocktail Western restaurant by the other party. Who knew that the unlucky thugs of White Crane Hall were all blind and followed him, eventually being captured by the fox hunting team. I heard that even Old Crane was given a good scolding by the special forces that night. The latest news is that White Crane Hall seems to be instigating a few other small gangs to start a war against the Jack Gang. Link chuckled at this. It was as if the lie was real. Chapter 73 A New Direction. Link left after a while. There were really all kinds of people in the underground black market. He had met this old man 4 times, and every time, this guy was just leeching off Link's popularity. After leaving the underground black market, the sand sculpture on the roof saw Link and immediately flew to the roof of the car to wait for him. The white saber sea eagle also landed next to the sand sculpture, as if it was a wife following her husband. The treasure-hunting mouse's little head popped out of the pocket, and it pouted in anger when it saw the idiot's emotionless public display of affection. This guy had a partner, but he still had a face like a Sima. He had gotten an advantage, but he still acted innocent. He was really pretentious. The little treasure mouse was timid. As Link's first pet, it had always considered itself a senior elder. Treasure-hunting mouse would not allow itself to fall behind in finding a partner. Perhaps it was because of the news last night and the scene of Link walking into the Platinum Hotel this morning. Many assassins and bounty hunters retreated. Link was not attacked at all in the underground black market. Alas, life without an assassin is always so simple and boring. Link looked at the busy people in the slums in the morning and suddenly felt like he was one of them. Without any assassins, Link had lost his most important source of income. When the car stopped at the entrance of the alley of the Jack Gang, Lin K still felt a little disappointed. Where was the most basic trust between people? He had already come to the underground black market, so why didn't these assassins come out to target him? A 200,000 gold bounty was quite a lot, right? Sigh, are all the assassins these days so high-eyed but weak? You don't even have the basic qualities of an assassin. Link knew that if there were no more killers today, there would only be fewer and fewer killers in the future. However, the danger level would also increase. Because once they made a move, it was very likely that it would be an old bird, and it would not be so easy to deal with it. However, Link glanced at the Jack Gang's territory. The White Crane Hall had divided the territory that originally belonged to the Jack Gang to the other 3 clans. It seemed that he would not have many opportunities to go out in the following period of time. Link walked into the Jack Gang and saw that third brother had gathered all the hatchet men. Everyone looked disappointed and confused. They could tell that third brother had already explained the current situation to them. Without land, there was no way to collect rent. With the aggressive White Crane Hall above and the other 3 gangs nibbling away at their living space, where would the future path of the Jack Gang be? Where would their future path be? After third brother finished speaking, the thugs all became philosophers, thinking about their own way out. Don't worry, the future of the Jack Gang will only be more brilliant. Link clapped his hands, trying to gain the upper hand. He strode into the room and said to third brother, give me a name list now. I want the information of all our brothers and tabulate everyone's specialties. Link said as he walked into the office. Now, the White Crane Hall had made a move within the rules, and he could only receive the move within the rules. Once he crossed the line, his reputation in the gang would be ruined. His target was not the Jack Gang, but Alongso and Moros, the second kings of Shadu. These 7 sinners were now the leaders of their respective regions. It would play an important role in the game's official release. More importantly, once the game was released, a large number of players would have the Freedom Federation as their background. Link's actions were no different from killing the faction leader. It would definitely cause a large number of players to be dissatisfied and put himself in danger. Thus, Link had to create his own force, big enough to influence the game. The power of a gang was the starting point for Link to develop his power. By roping in a group of players and letting them fight against other players, he would have enough energy to deal with the 7 traitors. Furthermore, when he entered the universe in the later stages of version 2.0 Type 1 Contact, his forces could help him search for clues about the Zerg Hive on other planets. Of course, the most important point was that he wouldn't be able to get any protection fees from this territory. It wasn't even as much as killing an assassin. Ah Fu was observant enough to walk up and hang Link's coat on the hanger. Then, while Link sat down on the tiger skin chair, she poured him a cup of coffee and a stack of newspapers. Lin Ke had just undid his tie when he saw the coffee and newspaper on the table. He was stunned. Lin Ke's fingers were still on his tie. He pointed at the table and said, "Where did you get this newspaper?" Ah Fu gave a silly smile. "Boss, when I was at Platinum Hotel, I saw the people in the lounge area holding newspapers and crossing their legs. They looked quite stylish. So, I took a copy of each newspaper." "Boss, don't worry. I've asked the waiter. These newspapers are all provided for free." Link chuckled. However, thinking about the coffee and newspaper he was reading in the morning, he did feel like a gang leader. Link crossed his legs and leaned back against the tiger skin chair. He picked up the coffee with one hand and the newspaper with the other. The treasure-hunting mouse also jumped out of the pocket and into the clean ashtray on the table. It was just the right size to curl up into a ball. Ah Fu had brought many different types of newspapers. At first glance, there were 3 to 4 types. It seemed that she had taken a copy of all the newspapers on the newspaper stand in the Platinum Hotel's lounge area. Link glanced at the newspaper in his hand. It was the Wasteland Morning Post. This was a political newspaper, and behind it was the Freedom Federation's official publicity department. The people who could be published in this newspaper were all important figures who played an important role on Wasteland Planet. The various articles in the newspaper could represent the Freedom Federation's official attitude. Link immediately saw the headline: "The 3 great leaders of the Freedom Federation will be meeting at the end of June to discuss border issues." This report took up an entire page of the newspaper. Starting from the issues of ideology at the beginning of the Freedom Federation's establishment, he analyzed the origin of the Freedom Federation's current border defense problem in a simple yet in-depth manner. He also pointed out the main threats that the Freedom Federation was currently facing. The Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang in the south of Shandu, the mutated creatures in the north of Dragon City, the dark forest in the eastern part of the Magic Night is constantly spreading and eroding. Link took a sip of his coffee and watched with great interest. The front of the newspaper was about current political news, while the back section mainly focused on the issue of mutated human rights, as well as the rampant extremist thoughts in the Wasteland era that seriously eroded the healthy development of society and expressed concern. He put down the Wasteland Star Morning Post and switched to the Shandu Entertainment News. As its name suggested, the newspaper mainly focused on the culture and entertainment of Shandu. Compared with the Wasteland Star Morning Post, the newspaper was more down-to-earth in terms of content because the things reported were all happening in Shandu and around people. Link scanned through the information. There was a lot of information on the list, from the human rights issues of the dark races in the slums, to the demonstrations, to the art gallery's latest exhibition of the old era relics before the Day of Reckoning, to the upcoming tour of the Wasteland singer, Arya, to the beauty contest of rare animals. Link put down the newspaper and glanced at the treasure-hunting mouse. He did not know if it was because he was too tired from stealing things in the middle of the night or because he was infected by his laziness, but the little guy was sleeping soundly in the ashtray. There was a snot bubble at the tip of his nose, which grew and shrank with his breathing. Link chuckled. He took a sip of his coffee and continued reading. Focused Science was mainly focused on the changes in the Freedom Federation's science and technology, new weapon manufacturing and production, scientific equipment, mechanical manufacturing, research on mutated genes, excavation of ancient ruins, and so on. Half a cup of coffee had passed. Link picked up the last newspaper and his eyes lit up. As its name suggested, the newspaper street corner mostly focused on the rumors and gossip on the streets and alleys of Shandu. Link was immediately attracted by the title. The Love Affairs of Mrs. Dina, 2. The reason why Madame Bethy and her pet dog were sent to the hospital in an emergency is revealed. Sins of the Night in Uptown, v. Other than that, Link also saw many recruitment notices for guilds, big and small. Some offered food, accommodation, and a bonus. Some even offered year-end survival rewards. There were all kinds of recruitment. The most interesting thing was that Link saw news about him in a tofu-sized corner of the newspaper. It was the news about White Crane Hall being escorted back by the military last night, and the speculation that Link was inextricably linked to the military. Next to it was an introduction to his resume. The escaped slaves of the Wasteland Gang, the new boss of the Jack Gang, the golden reward of the Platinum Hotel, and so on were all written. It was a wonderful feeling to see his name and things in the newspaper. Thump thump thump. Come in. Number 3 walked in with a file and said, "Boss, I've already sorted out the statistical information you asked me to. When these people joined the gang, they only registered their information. Just now, I followed boss's instructions and made a standard registration form. I distributed it to everyone and filled it out seriously." Link took the file and turned it around to remove the white thread. He raised his head and looked at third brother, who wanted to say something but hesitated. He put down the file and said, "If you have anything to say, just say it. You don't have to hold back in front of me." Number 3 let out a long breath and said, "Boss, I called all my brothers back before you left. I told them about the division of the territory. Now, everyone's very depressed and not in a good state. I've already heard some complaints, and I'm afraid that if this continues, everyone's hearts will be scattered. So I'm going to ask you, boss. Our territory has been divided and we've lost a part of our income. The White Crane Hall is watching you like a tiger watching its prey. They will definitely seize every opportunity to attack you and drive you out of the Jack Gang. What should we do now?" Link pointed at the arm of the tiger hide chair. "The smuggling of wild animals is the lifeblood of the Jack Gang. We will focus on this next. At the same time, we can't relax or slack off. In the following period of time, I'll make them improve according to their specialties and assign them different tasks." As Link spoke, he happened to see the Shudu Entertainment news on the table. He pointed at the news about the Rare Animal Beauty Contest. "Our first small goal can start from this. Chapter 74 How many more trump cards does boss have?" Number 3 tilted his head and saw the newspaper section, but he immediately frowned. A beauty contest for rare animals. Third brother knew about this competition. It was organized by Shandu Entertainment News. It was held once a year in Shandu, and this was the 5th one. However, most of the participants were uptown ladies and socialites, so it was a small circle. "Boss, maybe you just came to Shandu, so you don't know much about some things." Third brother gave Lincoln out, then continued, "Although it's written that everyone can sign up for this event, it's mainly targeted at the uptown ladies and socialites. It's considered an event within their small circle, and it's difficult for outsiders to squeeze in. It's just the preliminary registration now, and the finals won't start until late May. Even if we win the championship, the reward will only be 150,000 yuan. It won't be enough to solve our urgent needs." Now that the Jack Gang had lost their territory, there were no signs of the animals in the basement being sold. There was still a week before the monthly payment to the White Crane Hall, and the road ahead for the Jack Gang would become more and more difficult. Previously, when boss came back, he confidently said that the Jack Gang would be glorious. Third brother thought that boss was confident. However, after hearing his boss's suggestion, third brother's heart instantly felt as if it had been doused with cold water. Link took in the changes in his expression, but his expression remained unchanged. "It's fine, I'm just using the animal beauty pageant as a stepping stone and taking the opportunity to make the Jack Gang famous for their wild animals." "Right, Third brother, arrange for someone to make a copy of an empty room, the bigger the better. I need it. Third originally wanted to advise him again, but after hesitating for a moment, he couldn't say it. If he said it again, he was afraid that it would make boss hate him, and it would have the opposite effect. This time, the White Crane Hall was aggressive and had directly grabbed the lifeline of the Jack gang. The boss was still thinking about the animal beauty contest and ignored the depressed mood of his gang brothers. He was finished, completely finished. Number 3 pointed at 3 to 5 people listlessly. You, and you, come with me to clean up the house. The thugs' faces were also filled with unwillingness, and those who were called out had extremely ugly expressions. We don't even have a territory anymore. Why are you cleaning up the house now? Are you training us to be nannies? If this continues, we won't be able to last 2 months, right? When Boss Jack was still around, our revenue and expenditure were just at the same level. Now that the territory is gone, it's bound to collapse. It's only a matter of time. Third brother clapped his hands. All right, stop complaining. It won't be good if boss hears you. Hurry up and move the things. Link was in his office. He opened the file and took out all the information. Many of the hatchet men's words were crooked, and the strokes were trembling. It could be seen that writing was a very difficult thing for them. This had to do with the education environment in the slums. There were schools in the slums, but they only taught the most basic reading and literacy. The rulers and the nobles did not want people to cross classes, so they had always adopted a policy of pen farming for the slums. 2 days ago, Link had just taken over the Jack gang. Due to external pressure, he had not had time to get to know his brothers in the gang. Now, he was taking the opportunity to read the files and get to know more about his subordinates. Because it was previously stated that they had to write their specialties, everyone was racking their brains. Link glanced at it. Picking locks and stealing were all common. There were also driving and dice rolling. Link focused on the specialties first. The one that left the deepest impression on him was a young man with the words ventriloquism written on it. This specialty made Link shiver, and he memorized the man's name, Quinton. After a while, third brother knocked on the door and came in with sweat all over his head. Boss, the room has been tidied up. Gather Fu and everyone else to the rest area. I have something to announce. Link stood up, smoothed the creases on his shirt, and walked out of the office. Third brother and the other thugs were like frosted eggplants, their heads lowered and listless. Lin Ke remembered that when he had left the house in the morning, the eyes of the hatchet men had been filled with a brilliant glow. It was the anticipation and yearning for the future. But now, everyone was listless and stood in line in the rest area. She was like a doll that could be played with, but also like an emotionless zombie. Their territory was gone, and White Crane Hall had made their move. Not only did their boss not lead them to counterattack, but they had also been hiding. They could only watch Jack Gang's terminally ill old man die bit by bit, but there was nothing they could do. A deep sense of powerlessness took root in everyone's hearts. Fu was the last to arrive. He ran back in a hurry, sweating profusely. Fu, what did you do? Link asked curiously as he looked at Fu's panting face. I'm practicing my driving in the alley. Didn't boss tell me to practice properly last night? Link crossed his arms, half sitting at the dining table. Wipe your sweat first and then take out the things in your backpack. The lackey quickly handed over a tissue. Fu simply wiped the sweat off his forehead and took off the strengthening backpack. Boss, are we just going to leave it here? Fu pointed at the empty concrete floor. Third brother and the thugs looked at each other, confused. They didn't know what their boss and brother Fu were talking about. He didn't know why their boss had gathered them together to show them. Fu reached into the strengthening backpack, and something fell to the ground. Everyone's eyes were focused on the black pistol on the ground, and soon someone exclaimed. USP-1995 Classic Semi-Automatic Pistol. Isn't this just a handgun? The surrounding thugs couldn't help but say. This isn't an ordinary semi-automatic pistol. This is the USP-1995 classic model. If it was in the underground black market, this pistol could be sold for 6,000 wasteland coins. What? It's 10 times more than what we have. The thug's mouth was wide open as he looked at the ordinary-looking wasp pistol. He did not expect the price to be more than 10 times more expensive than the ordinary one. 6,000 from the Wasteland Gang is enough for us to collect protection fees for half a street. Many of the thugs gasped and lit up. Fu didn't care much. He didn't care how shocked the men were. He just followed his boss's orders and took out all the guns in his backpack. Fu's enhanced backpack was like a bottomless pit, and the pistols fell out of it. The thug who knew guns was amazed. None of the guns Brother Fu took out from his backpack were common. M2000 P29 M1911. Hiss. The collector's edition Colt 6-shot revolver, fixed price of 11,000 in the underground black market. The thug saw the gun fall to the ground and his body trembled. In his eyes, these were all works of art. It was heartbreaking to see them fall to the ground like this. Third Brother's mind was blank. There were already more than a dozen pistols on the ground, but looking at Ah Fu's posture, it didn't seem like he was going to stop. Instead, he was even more energetic. Although the others didn't understand, seeing so many guns being taken out of their backpacks, they also became excited. "You're Zhang Ming, right?" Link flipped through the file. There was a guy named Zhang Ming who wrote gun knowledge. Zhang Ming was a little flustered when his name was called. At the same time, he was happy. He didn't expect his boss to know his name. "Boss, it's me. Since you're feeling heartache, then help Fu with the cleaning." "All right." Zhang Ming couldn't hide the bright smile on his face. To be able to touch his beloved baby with his own hands was simply a dream come true. Zhang Ming quickly walked forward and placed all the guns on the floor on the table. Fu took out the last pistol, patted his hands, and let out a long breath. "I've already taken out all my pistols." Zhang Ming's eyes lit up as he looked at the dozen or so pistols on the table. These were simply works of art. The other thug's eyes were also shining. Boss had gotten so many guns at once, he was clearly going to cause trouble. "Boss, what are you doing?" Fu interrupted Third Brother before he could finish his sentence. "Don't worry, there's still more in the bag. All sorts of submachine guns, single-bore grape shotguns, and assault rifles." The weapons that Fu took out from his backpack were more powerful, and their shapes were more and more exaggerated. In addition to the original guns, there were also enhanced versions that had been modified. There were even a few assault rifles that Zhang Ming couldn't name. When Fu finally came out with the sniper rifle in both hands, Zhang Ming's mouth was so wide open that a fist could be stuffed in it. The gazes of Third Brother and the other hatchet men behind him had gradually turned into that of a dumbfounded statue. Their eyes were dull, and their brains had completely shut down. Other than the firearms on the table, the capacity of Ah Fu's backpack made them feel unreal. This is the Butcher Dismemberment Swan Ni. Zhang Ming said the name of the sniper rifle with a trembling voice. 8x optical sniper scope, specially customized extended silencer, specially modified length and detachable module setting, hand-sewn rhinoceros skin gun stock, and custom-made high-energy armor-piercing bullet, Pixiu. This gun is completely customized. How much is this gun? Fu asked curiously. Zhang Ming shook his head with a serious face. The underground black market's normal version is also priced at 60,000 to 80,000 wasteland coins. This one was completely customized, so the price would only be higher. If it's priced at 100,000, I'm afraid the underground black market will go crazy. Hiss. Everyone except Link gasped in shock. A gun worth 100,000 yuan, what kind of concept was that? Looking at the firearms piled up on the table, it was like a small arsenal. Most of the guns in the hands of the bouncers were bought from second-hand stores in the underground black market. The price of a new gun usually fluctuated between 700 and 800 yuan, while a simple second-hand pistol could be reduced to 300 or 400 yuan. But the guns on the table in front of him cost at least 2,000 to 3,000. The thugs felt like it was a rare sight for Granny Lu to enter the Grand View Garden. "Oh, right, I forgot. There's still something I haven't cleaned up," Fu said as he took out 4 more bulletproof vests from his backpack. The dazed thugs gradually came back to their senses, and their eyes lit up with the flames of revenge. *CK, take this gun. They even had the courage to go out and fight the other 3 gangs head-on. Now, move these guns to the room inside. In the future, that room will be our Jack Gang's armory. This time, there was no need to make specific arrangements. As if they had been injected with stimulants, the thugs took the initiative to help move all the firearms and equipment into the room. On the side, third brother looked at his eldest brother, who had a well-thought-out plan, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He couldn't help but sigh. "Boss, how many more surprises and trump cards do you have?" 75 Chapter 75 Face. Third brother's heart was filled with complicated feelings. Self-blame, relief, joy, shock, all kinds of emotions were mixed together in her head, and she couldn't describe the feeling. It turned out that the boss had already made preparations. Once these weapons and equipment were taken out, everyone's low morale was instantly reversed, even rising to an unprecedented high. The thugs joined gangs basically to find a way to make a living. Although there were a lot of gang fights, in the slums, fighting for murder was as common as eating and drinking. Joining a gang to find a backer could be considered as another form of self-protection. The salary of the thugs was meager, and after joining the gang, they even had to deal with their own pistols. Since he couldn't get a pistol, he could only use a dagger to do things. To the gang's hatchet men, the gun was a person's courage and also a person's life. But because of their income, many of the guns were the cheapest second-hand goods. Now that their boss had given them a valuable armory, it was an extra layer of protection for their lives. Not to mention anything else, just the submachine guns and assault rifles just now, if they were given one, they would dare to fight against 10 people. Soon, all the guns were placed in the right positions under Zhang Ming's command. As far as the eye could see, the entire room was almost filled. The gang treasure butcher Dimer sniper rifle was placed on the cabinet in the center. It would be great if there was a gun rack. If I put all of them on the gun rack, the space utilization rate would be much higher. Zhang Ming was already thinking about whether he should act as a temporary welder and weld a few gun frames himself. Zhang Ming stayed in the armory to tally the data while the rest of the people came out and returned to the rest area. All of their faces were glowing as their fighting spirit was reignited. "Boss, when are we going to counterattack?" an impatient thug asked impatiently. Link's eyes swept across the crowd. He noticed the urgency in their eyes. They couldn't wait to start a war with the 3 factions and use their new weapons. Since someone had spoken, Link went along with it. "I've never paid any attention to the Pacino family, the group of 7, or the Rumen clan. Our current enemy is the White Crane Hall. Now that everyone thinks that we're going to lose and can't hold on any longer, we'll just beat them at their own game and take this opportunity to develop ourselves. My request is very simple: to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat." When everyone heard "we'll definitely lose," they all looked guilty. Not to mention others, many of them also thought the same. Facing the open conspiracy of White Crane Hall, there was no way they could survive. But now, Link's few words had made their blood boil and successfully shifted their target from the 3 sects to White Crane Hall. Even the White Crane Hall might not have such high firepower weapons. He pointed his sword at the White Crane Hall. This was the first time Link had announced his ambitions and plans in front of all his subordinates. Their target was not the small gangs around them, but the White Crane Hall. Number 3 quickly understood what Link was trying to say. He stood up and said, "Boss's meaning is already very clear. If we attack the 3 clans around us now, White Crane Hall will notice our strength and think of more ways to punish us. Now that no one is optimistic about us, we can find a way to survive in the cracks and find opportunities to develop. Regarding weapons and equipment, everyone can speak freely within the guild. However, if anyone dares to mention the armory outside the alley, don't blame me for punishing you. Third brother, don't worry. We won't talk nonsense. If anyone talks big outside, I'll be the first to not let them off. That's right, that's right. Everyone responded with a sneaky smile on their faces, as if they had secretly made a fortune. At this moment, Zhang Ming walked out of the armory with a registration book in his hand and shouted, "The total value of all the equipment is 450,000 wasteland coins." Boom! Everyone in the resting area felt their heads explode. Their heads buzzed and they were a little dazed. A gun worth 450,000? Third brother's body was a little shaky. No one knew the Jack Gang's financial situation better than he did. In the past, after paying the monthly tribute to White Crane Hall and paying the salaries of his brothers, he only had less than 20,000 yuan left in his savings to buy animals for the next month. An armory worth 450,000 was something they didn't even dare to think about. Lin Ke clapped his hands to pull everyone back from their shock. All right, everyone is free to do what they want, although we're going to lie low for a while. We can't neglect our training. I'll develop a training plan and assessment method according to your strengths. Before this, everyone had the mood and performance of someone who wanted the Jack Gang to be finished and could do anything they wanted. But now, after seeing the armory and hearing about the training assessment plan, everyone knew that their boss had not given up. He was still accumulating power. Everyone had fought before. If one wanted to punch more forcefully, one had to step back more. This retreat wasn't a failure, nor was it an escape. It was for the sake of a more powerful punch. Zhang Ming passed the register to Link. Link flipped through it. Each gun's type and the number of bullets were recorded in detail. Link returned the gun register to Zhang Ming and patted his shoulder. Since you know guns and like guns, I'll leave the armory to you. Take the key. Link passed a bunch of keys to Zhang Ming. Zhang Ming was overwhelmed by the sudden promotion. Many thanks, boss. I'll definitely work harder and not let you down. Zhang Ming really didn't expect this. Although the boss had been in the Jack Gang for 2 days, he usually stayed in the house and didn't have much communication with them. But now, just based on her love for guns, she had given him such an important arsenal. What kind of trust was this? Zhang Ming suddenly felt like he was dying for his friend. He wanted to sell his life to Link. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ke noticed that Zhang Ming's loyalty had increased by a huge margin. It reached 99 points in an instant. The others also looked at Zhang Ming enviously. In the blink of an eye, he had become the head of the inner palace from a lackey. Before this, everyone was in awe of their new boss. After today's conversation, a more three-dimensional image appeared in front of everyone, and everyone became more daring. Boss, where did you get these weapons? Do you even need to ask? Boss and the painter have such a close relationship. It must be the painter who sent him. On the contrary, I think it's very likely that Commander Mun's son sent reinforcements. After all, how can we suddenly get so many assault rifles and sniper rifles without some connections? The thugs shifted their attention to the legendary king of assassins, John, and the only son of the Mun Kingdom's commander. Third brother had the same opinion as everyone else, but he was more certain that he was the only son of Commander Mun Kingdom. Yesterday, the special forces broke through the gate of White Crane Hall, and today, they sent so many weapons to boss. It was very reasonable. As for the king of assassins, John, in the third brother's eyes, such a legendary figure was always elusive and aloof, and would not easily involve himself in the affairs of the secular world. Benjamin and I only nodded at each other, said Link, we're not as close as you think. What happened last night was just a coincidence. These weapons were taken from the assassins last night. I took them from Platinum Hotel. After hearing Link's explanation, the excitement on the men's faces faded a little. He had thought that the boss had a backer, but it turned out to be the killer's private warehouse. All right, third brother, make some arrangements in the afternoon. It's best if everyone doesn't go out, so as to avoid a conflict with the three sects that are taking over the territory. Link then returned to his office with his hands behind his back. To a gang leader, he still had a lot of work to do. Link returned to his office and started setting up different assessment tasks for each person according to their strengths. Zhang Ming happily pulled a few people to the side and began to prepare to make the gun rack. Ah Fu still pulled his lackey to the alley to continue practicing driving. Not long after, Fu suddenly felt a slight buzz from the ground, and the pendant on the rear-view mirror in the middle of the car also shook. The sand eagle in the pile of waste paper stretched out its wings weakly, wanting to fly up and investigate the situation. However, his body had been emptied, and there was not a single drop left. Just as it spread its wings and wanted to fly, it ended up falling onto the paper box. The white saber sea eagle was in high spirits. It immediately stopped the sand eagle and flapped its wings to fly to the tall building. The hellhound in the yard was also restless and kept barking at the door. Number 3 and the others also heard the sound of engines being turned off outside and immediately noticed that something was wrong. Everyone, take out your weapons and prepare for battle. The shaking was so loud that the ground could clearly feel it. The lackey reacted quickly and immediately pulled the handbrake. Brother Fu, we'd better go back now. The two of them got out of the car without a word and returned to the Jack gang. Zhang Ming, who had just become the armory supervisor, was in charge of distributing weapons to everyone. Everyone was in the courtyard, looking for cover under third brother's command. They held their extremely luxurious weapons as if they were facing a great enemy. Haha, brother Lin, I'm here to find you. You didn't expect this, did you? A person suddenly jumped out of the alley. He was wearing a refreshing sportswear and had a strange smile on his face. However, what welcomed him was a huge barbed wire outside the yard. And through the barbed wire, he could see countless guns. The expression on the person's face instantly froze. Why is it Benjamin? Ah Fu scratched his head in confusion. After hearing Fu's answer, third brother frowned. Not a gang, but the son of Commander Mun? In the next second, soldiers in Special Forces uniforms appeared behind Benjamin, holding guns and lining up at the entrance of the alley. Young master, you should have waited for us. The captain of the Special Forces had just reached Benjamin's side when he suddenly felt a killing intent. He looked towards Jack's gang and saw that all the hatchet men were holding their guns and staring at them like tigers watching their prey. He looked at the guns in their hands, which were no worse than the weapons of the Special Forces soldiers under his command. There were also many rare goods that were rarely seen even in the army. This link is quite interesting. Chapter 76. We'll watch as the Sandpiper and Clam fight. All of you may leave, we are friends. Lin Ke walked out of the Jack gang. He was dressed in a black suit and his back was straight. He held treasure-hunting mouse with one hand and gently rubbed its back with the other. His confident steps and arrogant eyes formed a unique aura. The captain of the Special Forces had only seen this kind of temperament from some big bosses. Although Link only had a hint of special aura now, it was enough to stand out and make people remember him. Benjamin quickly went around the wire fence and ran to Link. Brother Lin, how is it? You didn't expect me to come, did you? The thugs first looked at the Shazhu Special Forces in the alley, then at Benjamin, son of the famous fox hunter Special Forces commander, Mun. Finally, they all focused their eyes on Link, and realization dawned on them. So the boss was just being too humble when he said that he was not close to Benjamin. How could an unfamiliar person rush up and directly call him Brother Lin? Wouldn't it be awkward? From this, it could be inferred that the boss and Benjamin were definitely very familiar with each other. Link glanced at the enlightened thugs. He had no desire to explain. The scene in front of them was like mud falling to the crotch of their pants. Even if it wasn't sh*t, it was still sh*t. The captain of the special forces led the soldiers into the alley, with no intention of following them closely. Ever since the White Crane Hall had surrounded the young master, the knight captain had investigated how Link and the young master had gotten to know each other. He then found out about the Purple Dream Girl and decided to increase the number of guards. Especially since it was the weekend, the young master had a sudden idea to come to the slums to find Link. The captain led his troops without any disguise. He led the way in front of the armored vehicle and covered the left and right with the military vehicle. He brought the young master to the door in a grand manner. "Why are you here?" Link sized Benjamin up and realized that he was dressed very casually today, as if he was on vacation. "It's a boring weekend, so I decided to drop by Brother Lin's place to take a look." "Brother Lin, aren't you going to show me around?" Link could tell from Benjamin's eyes that he was really curious. At the same time, he was also in disbelief that the son of Commander Mun, who stirred up a storm in Shazu, was actually an innocent and naive person. Link could only sigh at the fact that Commander Mun had protected his only son too well. Link waved his hand, signaling for the other goons to get back to work. He then led Benjamin around. The territory of the Jack Gang is very small, and all of it has been taken away by the White Crane Hall. It's only the size of a palm now, probably not even as big as your bedroom. Please don't mind it," Link said as he stroked the treasure-hunting mouse. Benjamin was stunned for a moment, and his brows furrowed into a knot. "Didn't I ask Brother Li to come to White Crane Hall and tell them yesterday? Why do they still dare to attack now? It was really against the heavens." "No, I have to tell Brother Li again." Link pointed at the armored vehicles and troops at the alley. "It's fine. Today's scene is enough." Third brother, who was following behind them, felt his heart stir as he listened to the conversation between the two. He had thought that Benjamin and his boss had an equal working relationship, but now it seemed that Benjamin admired his boss. The way he addressed Lin Fan as Brother Lin was especially warm. What did his boss do to make the son of Commander Mun Kingdom admire him so much? "Third brother, introduce him to Benjamin." On the other side, the thugs had scattered. Jiang Ming arranged for everyone to return their weapons to the armory and verify them one by one. The thugs were sitting in the courtyard in groups of 2s and 3s, whispering to each other. "Didn't boss say that his relationship with Benjamin was normal? You believe whatever the boss says? You're clearly being humble. Life is the excuse of the weak, and luck is the humble words of the strong." As expected, boss is even more low-key than we thought. In the future, if boss says that his relationship with anyone is ordinary, don't believe him. The young master of the Commander-in-Chief's family is here to help our boss. Let's see if the people of the 3 lower sects dare to take over our territory. Fu came out of the room and waved his hand. "Don't just sit there, come over and help." After a while, the hatchet men carried the herbal tea to the entrance of the alley and distributed it to all the special forces. "It's been a long afternoon, and we've all worked hard. Have some herbal tea to relieve your heat." Fu had started brewing this herbal tea in the morning. He had originally planned to share it with his brothers in the gang after it had cooled in the afternoon. Now that the special forces were here, he would give them the money first. The captain of the special forces glanced at Fu, took the herbal tea, and took a sip. There was a hint of medicinal taste under the sweetness. After swallowing it, all his internal organs felt comfortable, and the pressure on his body was relieved. The captain of the special forces nodded, indicating that there was no problem with the herbal tea. The soldiers behind him then began to drink. "This car is your boss's, right?" The special forces captain pointed at the Will-O-Wisp V8 parked in the alley. He had seen this car yesterday. "Give me the keys, I'll get my men to help you move the car out." The captain of the special forces, Li Zijun, also took the opportunity to chat with Fu. "I heard that you and Link both escaped from the Wasteland gang." Fu didn't think much of it and nodded repeatedly. Yes, quicksand occurred in the underground palace. Only boss and I managed to escape. You two are really lucky to be able to escape from quicksand. Li Zijun chatted with Ah Fu from time to time. After a while, the soldiers outside jogged over to return the key and made a new discovery. Captain, we suddenly discovered quite a number of guild members nearby. The corners of Li Zijun's mouth lifted into a smile. She did not make her own decision, but instead asked Ah Fu, there are other gang members outside. What do you think we should do? Fu recalled what the boss had said in a meeting before. The Jack gang had to keep a low profile for now, not exposing their trump cards, and not having conflicts. They're here to take over the territory. Ignore them. Li Zijun furrowed her brows. The news that she had led her troops into White Crane Hall yesterday should have spread throughout the slums. Today, there were still people who dared to touch the territory of the Jack gang. She also did not expect that Link's servant would still be indifferent to this. This was very interesting. After he returned yesterday, he had investigated Link and AFU in detail. The black fatty in front of him, who looked charmingly naive, was a ruthless person who had barged into the Rumen society alone and injured the Rumen society's boss, killed many people, and injured many people in the face of a storm of bullets. However, from the outside, he looked completely harmless and didn't seem to have any ability. Then we'll do as Brother Fu said. If they don't do anything, we don't have to bother with them. Yes. The Pacino family, the group of 7, and the Rumen society had originally planned to keep their tails between their legs for this period of time. However, this morning, the White Crane Hall suddenly sent people to visit the 3 gangs and gave them a strange order to take over the territory of the Jack gang. Even how much each family could get had been clearly indicated. Furthermore, the 13 tycoons of White Crane Hall had clearly stated that they did not need to pay any protection fees. Was there such a good thing? Faced with the sudden benefits, the clan masters of the 3 gangs did not react in time. If it weren't for the fact that the people who had come were the 13 gangsters of White Crane Hall, they would have thought that someone was using them as a joke. Soon, the 3 gangs connected the incident at White Crane Hall last night and figured out the ins and outs of the matter. The encirclement by White Crane Hall last night must have infuriated the military, and they are forbidden from taking action in public. So now, White Crane Hall can only use gang tactics to divide up the territory of the Jack gang, making them unable to pay the monthly tribute next month, and use this as an excuse to make trouble. It's most likely so. Although the military could stop White Crane Hall from taking action, there was a rule in the city that the military was not allowed to interfere with the internal affairs of the gangs in the slums as long as the safety of the city was not affected. Last night's incident was caused by Commander Mun's son, so the military can intervene. However, this is an internal matter of the White Crane Hall, so the military has no reason to interfere. So you're saying that we can take this territory? It should be our turn to take it. Just take it as an apology from the Jack gang for killing our gang members. Of course. To put it bluntly, this is just a battle between Old Crane and Link. They're sniping each other, and we're the ones who benefit. The head of the Pacino family took a puff of his cigar and said, "Count our men. When the time is up, we'll take over the territory." The same discussion and decision were made by the group of 7 and the Rumen society. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the 3 gangs happily took over the Jack gang's territory, and the journey was quite smooth. However, when they arrived at the entrance of the Jack gang, they were all stunned. Military vehicles were parked on both sides of the main road where the Jack gang was. Armored tractors equipped with cannons, military-use jeeps with light machine guns, and large trucks dedicated to transporting troops. There were also special forces armed with weapons waiting in the alley of the Jack gang. Their scale and weapons were even more professional than the guards of the Shadow City who suppressed the demonstrations. What's going on? The members of the 3 gangs who had come together were all dumbfounded. There should not be such a large force and firepower in the slums. The gang members who had been swaggering around were now like mice who had seen a cat. They ran behind cover and only dared to show their heads to observe the situation on the other side of the street. Could it be that Link has been punished for scamming the military? Otherwise, there shouldn't be so many armored vehicles. There's no sound of gunfire or movement inside the Jack gang. Also, look at the Special Forces soldiers guarding outside. They're all drinking herbal tea. It doesn't look like they're on a mission at all. Could it be that the Jack gang knew about White Crane Hall's plan and specially invited the military to come here? Whatever, I have to call boss and tell him about the current situation. The representatives sent by the three gangs to take over the territory were also the core backbone of the three gangs. At this moment, they called their respective bosses at the same time and reported the current situation at the Jack gang's entrance. The three family heads' expressions were grave. They had thought that they would be able to get a piece of fat meat, but now it seemed that the situation was even more complicated. Don't act rashly. I'll report the situation to White Crane Hall and we'll see what they say. Chapter 77 Benjamin is also a lucky star. The three gang members and leaders, who were usually hostile to each other and would be jealous when they saw each other, were all gathered together at that moment. They stuck their heads out and stared at the entrance of the alley across the street. The sudden appearance of the army made the three sects, who were originally celebrating the new year, feel like they were facing a great enemy. Even though they were doing their normal job of taking over the territory, when the gang saw the military people, it was like a mouse seeing a cat. There was a natural sense of fear. The people from the three sects were waiting for orders from above. At the same time, in White Crane Hall, the 13 gangsters received 3 calls in a row. Foster father, it's not good. All 3 gangs have called to say that there are a large number of military personnel equipped with weapons at the entrance of the Jack gang. They're asking what we should do now. Old Crane, who was fiddling with an antique on his back, answered without turning his head. I've given this matter to your second brother to handle. You can ask him. Then, Elder, he said earnestly, 11, you should be more mature in the future. Don't be so flustered. 11 couldn't understand. This was a pressing matter, and the military had sent people to support Link. Wasn't this urgent? All right, I'll get going, foster father. 11 carefully left Elder He's room, then quickened his pace to find his second brother Sun Shu. A moment later. Second brother, bad news, all 3 gangs have called to say that there are a large number of armed military personnel at the entrance of the Jack gang, asking what we should do now. 11 pushed open the door anxiously and found Sun Shu drinking tea in a relaxed manner. The impatient 11 quickly went up to hold Sun Shu back and said, Second brother, at this time, you still have the mood to drink tea here. Sun Shu's face was unmoved as he asked, why are you panicking? It's obvious that the military is backing Link up. The 3 gangs don't even dare to take over the territory. Isn't this serious? Sun Shu took a sip of tea and said, the Sand City was able to go from a land of chaos to a land of order today all because of one rule. If the military doesn't want us to surround Link, we'll do it. However, the division of territory is an internal matter of our gang, and it's not the military's turn to tell us what to do. Even if General Alongso were to come, it would not be reasonable. So what are we afraid of? Sun Shu slowly put down his white porcelain teacup. Just tell the 3 gangs to take over the territory. If the special forces try to stop them, the other 3 commanders will have no excuse to make things difficult for them. 11 was still frowning. He only understood half of his second brother's words. He only believed in his own strength. What rules? He couldn't see or touch them. Was there such a thing? However, second brother was the white paper fan of White Crane Hall, in charge of all the affairs of White Crane Hall. Even foster father thought highly of him, so 11 still listened to his words. All right, I'll give the 3 gangs a reply and tell them to take over without any worries. Very quickly, the thugs of the 3 gangs who were waiting in front of the entrance of the Jack gang received orders from their superiors. They were not afraid of the military and were to directly take over the territory. The thugs gathered their courage and walked out onto the streets. Seeing that the special forces had no intention of targeting them, they gradually became bolder. The men of the Jack gang in the yard could vaguely see the members of the three factions outside through the barbed wire. They immediately stood up and stared outside. This bunch of dogs are actually so bold. They actually came to take over the territory in front of the military. The members of the Jack gang found it hard to believe the scene in front of them, and they were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Although Boss had said before that he had to look at the big picture and accumulate enough strength to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. But seeing the other three gangs flaunting their strength in front of them, they found it hard to accept. "Fred, you're close to Brother Fu. Go and ask him if we should go out and fight back." "Yes, we tightened our defense, but now that people are riding on our heads and shitting on us, are we still going to close the door and not come out?" Fred had the same idea as everyone else. He couldn't help but be tempted. "Then I'll go ask Brother Fu." Fred got up and walked to Fu. He asked in a low voice, "Brother Fu, the three gangs outside have come to take over the territory, but we've been hiding in our homes. The brothers have some opinions. Even if we don't do anything, it's good to let everyone out to let out a few words of trash talk to relieve the pressure." Fu thought for a moment and felt that what Fred said made sense. The boss only said not to reveal his strength, but he didn't say that he would let the other party bully him. However, there were too many people going out. It wouldn't be good if they accidentally caused a conflict. Fu thought about it and came up with a brilliant idea. I'll go out and take a look at the situation first. You guys can come out later." Fu thought that even if something were to happen, he could directly spiritualize his body to avoid all the attacks. "I'm sorry, please excuse me." Li Zijun nodded slightly. Her sunglasses covered her eyes, and no expression could be seen on her face. As soon as Fu walked out of the alley, the Rumen Club's thugs looked as if they had seen the devil. Their expressions instantly collapsed, and then they fled at a speed of 100 meters. When the other two gangs saw the members of the Lumen gang, they started to run away in fear. At that moment, they didn't care about understanding the situation and also started to run. For a moment, all the hatchet men were in a mess and frantically fled. Not even a figure could be seen after a while. Fu's mouth was slightly agape as he looked at the three gangs of thugs who had disappeared without a trace. He was speechless. He hadn't even said anything, and everyone had already run away. Li Zijun crossed her hands in front of her chest and looked at the sudden change outside. Her lips twitched slightly. This was too much. These gang fighters, even if they saw the army, they wouldn't be this scared. Recalling the information she had found about Fu last night, Li Zijun was sure that this little fatty was something. The Jack gang was not big, and within 10 minutes, Link had already led Benjamin around. "Third brother, you can go back to your work. I'll chat with Benjamin for a while." After third brother left, the first thing Benjamin did was to take out his phone. "Brother Lin, give me your number so that we can contact each other in the future." The two of them exchanged phone numbers. Benjamin took a sip of tea and let out a satisfied sigh. Link looked at Benjamin. It was rare to see such an unpretentious young master. In his previous life, this son of the Mun Kingdom's commander wasn't an outstanding NPC and he didn't even have a storyline. However, Li Zijun, the captain of the Fox Hunter Special Forces, was an important figure. After players unlocked their secondary occupation at level 20, Li Zijun was the one who unlocked the secondary occupation Special Forces. The captain was impervious to anything and had a cold expression. He was not interested in anything other than octagonal cage fighting. In the past, in order to unlock the Special Forces sub-profession, the players had been beaten up by this guy in the octagonal cage. One match with Li Zijun in the octagonal cage would give 10 points of friendliness. Special Forces mission unlocked with 500 friendship points. Oh, I forgot to mention that Li Zijun is level 30+, leader. Well, you can imagine the rest. Brother Lin, you seem to like animals a lot. I didn't see anything else, but I did see a lot of animals. There was a vulture, a white-headed sea eagle, a hunting dog guarding the door, and the little mouse in Link's hand. It's just a little hobby. The hound at Brother Lin's door looks very brave. When I first came in, the way the hound stared at me really gave me a shock. It looked even more powerful than the army dogs. Speaking of which, can Brother Lin train such a powerful hound? What, you want one too? Link smiled. Benjamin shook his head and said, I don't really like these animals. It's just that I heard from Li Zijun and the others that the army is preparing to restore military dogs in a while. Brother Lin, if you can train such a brave hound, you can definitely take up a position in the army and help train them. You have triggered the D-rank mission old military practice, accept/decline. Mission hint, you have heard from Benjamin that the Shandu army is about to restore their military dogs. You may be able to gain a lot of benefits from this. Mission reward, determined by mission completion rate and impact. Link's eyebrows twitched. He did not expect to get such valuable information from Benjamin. He accepted the mission in silence and said, I'll consider this. You, on the other hand, came to the slums with such a big entourage. Didn't your father scold you? At the mention of Commander Mun, Benjamin pouted, forget it. He received a special mission 3 months ago. He took the elite special forces to a secret military base in the desert to carry out a security mission. He didn't even call me in the past 3 months, let alone me. Today's situation was all arranged by Brother Li. He said that the commander had been away for a while, and the people in Shadu had almost forgotten the dignity of the fox hunting special forces. It's a military secret, said Link, chuckling. Is it appropriate for you to tell me this? If the secret is leaked out, I can't bear the responsibility. Benjamin waved his hand. It's nothing basically. The higher UPS in the military know about this. They say it's to help the scientists with some space experiment it's done in the 3 scientific laboratories in Shandu, Dragon City, and Fei. Right now, that secret base is surrounded by hundreds of thousands of regular troops. Within it, there are the Freedom Federation's special forces, special agents, spies, and countless elites. There are also all kinds of land, sea, and air firepower. Even if the location is announced, no one will be able to break in. Hearing this, Link glanced at the time on the calendar on his table. His brows furrowed. He seemed to know what was going on. Today was April 19th, and the experiment would officially begin tomorrow on April 20th. This was also the day of the closed beta testing of Fate. The so-called space experiment was to give players a reason to enter the game, making the game plot more immersive. After the space experiment, many unstable small wormholes would form on Wasteland Planet, and the players would enter the game through these torn space. Link remembered that 1,000 players had been invited to conduct a 5-day beta test. In his previous life, the closed beta was conducted on a small scale, and the invited players were basically players from well-known clubs or guilds, as well as some gaming experts, professional players, video website uploaders, and so on. Moreover, the players who participated in the game had all signed confidentiality agreements, so it did not cause much of a stir to the outside world. It was only on the eve of the open beta that the ban was lifted, and these professional players could then publicize it. With the officially released settings and videos, Fate was pushed to the throne of the #1 game on the Blue Planet. This time, he really had to thank Benjamin. Otherwise, Link would not have remembered this at all. Chapter 78 Pirate Captain Benjamin. Let's not talk about those annoying things. Brother Lin, do you have time these days? Benjamin waved his hand and leaned closer to Link, asking mysteriously. What is it? Brother Lin, Benjamin said excitedly, have you heard about the haunted Howling Heights in the Weeping Valley? Hearing the name Howl Castle, Link nodded emotionlessly. I did hear about it from the bounty hunters when I was at the underground black market, but I don't know the details. It's okay, Brother Lin. It's okay if you don't know. I'll tell you about it now. Benjamin took another sip of tea and wiped the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. His bold and straightforward action made him look like a gangster. He was completely different from the image of the nobles in the uptown of the Sand capital who paid attention to quality and etiquette. This rumor has only spread recently. It was said that the castle had been abandoned for too long, and some unclean ghosts had occupied it. Some time ago, there were bounty hunters who stayed there, but something strange happened that night. 5 people went in, but only 3 people escaped. The other 2's things were there, but they disappeared. It's also possible that the 5 of them had an argument and made up a story to lie to avoid responsibility, Link said with a smile. Benjamin's face was serious as he continued, I thought so at first, thinking that it was an exception. However, similar news came in the next few days. The castle used to be an important stop for traveling between the Gobi Desert and the Sand City, but since this matter became more and more serious, no one dared to stay in the castle for the night anymore. And it's normal during the day all the weird things happen at night. Benjamin added, to increase the credibility of his words. Link's head tilted to the side as he looked at Benjamin's expectant eyes. He suddenly had a bad feeling. So, Brother Lin, if you have time, you, me, Brother Li, we can form a team and explore Wind Howl Castle. You have triggered the E-level mission exploration of the Howling Heights. Accept/decline. Mission hint, Benjamin invites you to join the castle exploration team to investigate the recent bizarre events in Whistle Castle. Mission reward, 5,000 experience points 100 favorability points with Benjamin. Wind Howl Castle? I'd like to go and have a look too. I'll contact you another day when I'm done. Lin Ke waved his phone as he spoke, indicating that he had saved his number. Link didn't agree to the deal just for the 5,000 experience points. It was mainly because he had been in the Sand City for a while, so he should go back to Howling Castle to check on the progress of the construction of the army ants. He also wanted to replenish some materials for the Silver Army ants. The Silver Army ants he'd brought out earlier had all been combined into stronger formation wall ants. After the reproduction of the Silver Queen ant during this period of time, the number of marching ants must have increased by a lot. He would go to stock up and take a look. Benjamin's face was full of doubt. Brother Lin, as a gang leader, all you have to do is drink coffee and read the newspaper every day, and then order your men to do things. I've seen those gang leaders on TV, aren't they all like this? The kind you're talking about is the boss of a big gang, Link said, chuckling. My Jack gang only has a small piece of land. It's hard to even make a living. How can I, as the boss, just leave it be? Have you heard of the beauty contest for rare animals organized by the Shudu Entertainment News? Link asked. Benjamin's eyes brightened, it was finally a topic he was familiar with. I'm very familiar with this competition. You don't know that the uptown's rich ladies hold this kind of boring competition every year. Every year, my mom will drag me to participate in it, and it's always the same. There's nothing new and boring, and the awards are basically decided internally by Ying Luo. After Benjamin finished, he looked at Link and opened his mouth slightly. Brother Lin, you're not saying that you want to participate in this competition, are you? Link nodded. This time, it was Benjamin's turn to be conflicted. Brother Lin, it's mainly because of the pets you have. Other than the mouse in your hand, the others don't match up to being rare and cute at all. Moreover, this competition is very deep. The awards are never based on the rarity of the animals, but on which lady's family is more popular this year. If you participate, you'll definitely return in defeat. I advise you not to have too much hope. Link's face was emotionless. He said indifferently, it's fine. I've heard about the inner workings of the selection, but I still believe that my pet can get a good ranking. Seeing that Link had made up his mind, Benjamin thought for a moment and slapped his thigh. My family is invited every year anyway. I've always been a bystander. If Brother Lin doesn't mind, you can use my family's name to participate. It's hard to say if we can get into the top 3, but the top 5 is definitely not a problem. Benjamin shook his phone. Contact me if you need anything. Brother Lin, you saved my life. You don't have to be polite. Benjamin looked at the time and stood up. Then I won't disturb you any longer. The main purpose of coming here today is to recognize the place and invite Brother Lin to go on an adventure. Since I've achieved my goal, I should go. After that, Benjamin put his hand to his mouth and explained in a low voice, Jenny gets off work at 5 o'clock. I have to pick her up. The two of them walked out of the office and into the courtyard. Benjamin couldn't help but look at the hound again. This time, the judging and threatening look in the hound's eyes disappeared, giving Benjamin the impression that this hound was an old friend of his that he had raised for many years. Brother Lin, your hunting dog is really smart. The first time I saw you, you were especially vigilant and didn't call out to me. Now that you've seen that we're on good terms, even your hostility towards me has disappeared, and there's even a sense of intimacy. Benjamin walked around the hound and asked Link, Brother Lin, I'm usually not interested in animals, but after seeing your hound, I actually have the urge to raise a dog. Can you lend me your hound for a few days? I don't really care, said Link, shrugging. Just see if the hound will follow you. Benjamin's face was filled with joy. Just as he was about to get close to the hellhound suddenly extended its sharp teeth, its expression extremely ferocious. Woof! 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 Benjamin was so scared that he stumbled backward and almost fell on his butt. Link quickly caught him from behind. It seems that it doesn't want to go with you. Benjamin was so scared that his face turned pale. He waved his hands and said, Forget it, I won't raise it. When Fu saw Li Zijun leaning against the wall, the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. She asked curiously, Speaking of which, isn't Benjamin your young master? Why are you still smiling when you see him in shock? My job is to protect the young master's safety. As long as his life is not threatened, I will not interfere with his life. Li Zijun adjusted her sunglasses. If a person doesn't even have the right to be happy, angry, sad, or happy, then it's not protection, but house arrest. Ah Fu didn't seem to understand and simply shook his head. His joy in life was to help and serve his boss. Benjamin took another look at his watch, waved goodbye, and ran off in a hurry. There doesn't seem to be enough time. Brother Lin, I'll be leaving first. Li Zijun glanced at Link again and nodded slightly. She raised her hand and retreated with the special forces. The roar of the engines of armored vehicles, military vehicles, and jeeps started at the same time, and the entire street could hear it. With thick smoke, the flood of steel left the slums and headed for the Golden Bridge. Back in his office, Link laughed to himself, feeling a little emotional. Benjamin must be the captain of a pirate ship. He's full of treasure armors. He had provided Link with a lot of inside information and a mission. Link glanced at the missions section of the system. He had accumulated quite a number of missions. 1 Grade C prey targeted by the wasteland. 2 Grade E Moro's pocket watch. 3 Grade A Mandala's revenge. 4 Job mission Wufu. 5 Grade S Bug Heart. 6 C rank Gold Bounty. 7 D rank Military Practice. 8 Level E Exploration of the Howling Castle. Link returned to his office. He took out a piece of paper and started thinking. As Link had never participated in the closed beta, his memory of the closed beta only existed in the descriptions on the forums. In addition, it had been too long, and a lot of the content was already unclear. Link wrote down the words Shitu on the white paper. The closed beta test would only last for 5 days, so he definitely couldn't go to Dragon City or Fae. Link had some vague memories of the closed beta players in the Sand City. In the forums of his previous life, Link remembered someone saying that during the closed beta, a player had joined a guild by chance. He had done well during the 5-day closed beta testing and was highly regarded by the guild leader. Moreover, Link had seen a rumor on the forum. One of the top 10 pugilists, Drifting Row of the Wind, was the first to arrive in Sand City during the closed beta. After the open beta started, he moved to Dragon City to develop himself, for unknown reasons. There was also a well-known Nouveau Riche player, Lien Gren Thief, who revealed his various experiences in Shandu during the closed beta testing in an interview. There might have been some other players, but it had been too long and Link couldn't remember clearly. Besides, these people didn't make a name for themselves later on and disappeared. Of course, the most important thing was that the game was too popular during the open beta period. There were tens of millions of players and millions of posts on the forum every day. The amount of information was shocking, and everyone spent their energy exploring the game world. No one cared about the news of the closed beta testing that had fallen behind a few months ago. Chapter 79 The closed beta is about to begin. It seems that recruiting NPCs is also a function that has been available since the closed beta stage. Link remembered reading on the forum that the old lady had summarized Fate's evolutionary history. After interviewing some closed beta players and analyzing the behavior of famous players during the open beta period, it was confirmed that this function had been activated since the closed beta period. The reason Link could remember it so clearly was because this Detective Kachi was very logical and reasonable. By analyzing the timeline of a closed beta player's actions and their motives, it was determined that the other party had recruited NPCs during the closed beta period. The closed beta player's response at that time was also very interesting. It was fake and completely fabricated, and had been handed over to the lawyer to deal with. This sentence had even once become the player's catchphrase, a quote from an internet celebrity. Other than that, Link's white paper still had some time. Wasteland Calendar, Year 42, April 20th. Wasteland Calendar, Year 42, October 1st. There was less than half a year left from the closed beta to the official open beta. The Pacino family, the group of 7, and the lackeys that Rumen would escape from, fled from the main road where the Jack gang was, and then stopped. Everyone was panting, fear still lingering in their hearts. They leaned against the wall listlessly or squatted down for cover, their foreheads covered in sweat. By the way, why did we run just now? Did the military open fire? The representative of the group of 7 leaned against the wall with the gun in his hand, hunched over, and panted heavily. I didn't hear any gunshots. The 7-man group of thugs were dumbfounded. They only heard the people around them shouting and yelling, but they didn't hear any gunshots. Then why are we running? I don't see anyone from the military chasing after us. The representative of the group of 7 looked back and found that the street was empty. Not to mention people, there was not even a dog. I remember that the Rumen society ran away first. A Pacino family member who was panting on a stone bench by the side of the road said. We were just passing by the entrance of the Jack gang and took a few glances at the fox hunting special forces. But suddenly, the members of the Rumen guild started shouting and running away. The brothers from our 2 guilds didn't know what was going on and didn't even realize what was going on, so they just ran away with them. The 2 groups of people stared at the Rumen society, waiting for them to give a reasonable explanation. The person in charge of taking over the territory this time was the second in command of the Rumen society. He had personally experienced the gunfight in the church. Because they saw the black fatty of the Jack gang. The Lumen Club's vice president recalled the scene when Fu came, and his eyes flickered with fear. The other 2 gangs had also heard about what happened yesterday. It was said that a black fatty went to the Rumen society to return the bodies, but the Rumen society's president was shot and injured. 7 or 8 people died, and 10 were injured. In the end, the other party even retreated in one piece. Among the 3 gangs nearby, they suffered the most losses. The Pacino family member frowned slightly. He had also seen the fatty who had just come out of the alley. Dark-skinned kids in suits were common in the slums. At any random restaurant or hotel, the waiters and waitresses inside were almost all dressed like this, plain and ordinary. A little fatty who looked a little cowardly could actually make the deputy president of the Lemon Club so afraid? Looking at the other members of the Lemon Club, they all recalled the events of last night. They were in a daze and didn't seem to be faking it. Is that guy really that powerful? The Pacino family member couldn't help but ask. The vice president of the Rumen Society had a serious expression on his face. His eyes swept past Pacino and the thugs and the person in charge of the seven-man team. I'll only say one thing. If you're unlucky enough to meet him, don't point your guns at him. After saying that, the vice president stood up and called his subordinates to gather and take back the territory, leaving the Pacino family and the seven-man group behind, dumbfounded. The stupid thing of shooting one's own people to death must not be said, or else Liu Meng would become the laughing-stock of all the gangs. The only solution was to make the enemy appear powerful and mysterious to the point of being unbeatable. This way, their losses and failures would still be justified. AI, what does that mean? What did he mean by not pointing a gun at him? Can't you speak more clearly? The members of the Pacino family were speechless. They only spoke halfway, leaving people hanging and causing them to have wild thoughts. The representatives of the seven-man team had grave expressions on their faces. Just one of Link's servants was already able to enter the Rumen Society as if no one was there. He had injured the boss and lost a few fighters. Even now, he was still very secretive about it and wouldn't say a word. How strong was Link then? On top of that, Link had the painters and the military behind him. Was it really a good choice to go against him? However, since things had already come to this, there was no turning back. From the moment they chose to take over the Jack Gang's territory, they had no way out. So, Link must die. The person in charge of the seven clenched his fists and thought to himself. The members of the Pacino family furrowed their brows and were still thinking. Don't point the gun at me. What do you mean? Suddenly, an absurd idea flashed through his mind. He thought of the casualties in the Roman Curia and came up with a bold guess. Don't tell me that little fatty has the ability to deflect bullets. The eyes of the Pacino family members flickered, and they felt that they were getting closer and closer to the truth. Link thought of the rumors in the underground black market. Link and Afu had escaped from the Wasteland Gang's laboratory and caused the quicksand. They were still wanted. Combined with Fu's ability to deflect bullets, the story of a human experiment going out of control and escaping from the Wasteland Gang formed in the minds of the members. That's definitely the case. This member of the Pacino family didn't say anything. Instead, he immediately restrained his expression and got up to take over the territory with his men. The three gangs now had the same goal, but each had their own ulterior motives. He had successfully taken over the territory of the Jack Gang and informed all the merchants that they had to pay protection fees to them in the future. The merchants in the slums had their own difficulties, but they knew a thing or two about gang fights. However, to them, it didn't matter who took over the territory. What was important was to give them a stable environment to do business. The White Crane Hall had also received feedback from the three gangs, saying that they had already taken all the territories of the Jack Gang. When the second brother of the 13 gangsters, Sun Shu, heard the news, he smiled indifferently. Now, no matter how hard Link tried, he would still die. There was still more than a week to the end of the month, so 300,000 was not a small amount. Even if he could gather the money this month, what about next month? What about the month after that? If Link couldn't bear it any longer, White Crane Hall would have a reason to surround and kill him. Sun Shu's plan allowed him to advance and retreat at the same time, which made the White Crane Hall invincible. On the other side, after Li Zijun sent young Master Benjamin to the library, she dismissed the special forces and only brought the most elite team to protect him. There were all sorts of surveillance equipment on the 7 business MPVs. Li Zijun took off her sunglasses and leaned against the back seat. After a while, a buzzing sound came from his phone. Li Zijun took out her mobile phone and saw the name displayed. She immediately straightened her body and her expression turned serious. Commander, what are your orders? How's Shandu recently, did anything happen? Li Zijun glanced at the other people in the car. The soldiers all got out of the car and stood guard outside the car with their guns, not letting any strangers enter. After the soldier got out of the car, Li Zijun said, "They're all good." Young master also successfully proposed to Miss Jenny, however, Ying Luo. But what? Then, Li Zijun told him everything that had happened on the day of Benjamin's proposal. This information was obtained by Li Zijun from the surveillance video in the library, combined with Benjamin's and Jenny's descriptions. So, the owner of the flower shop died in a car accident that day. Yes, after I found out about this, I immediately arranged for an investigation team to investigate. The result was that the owner died in a car accident that day. We didn't find anything unusual in the flower shop. All right, I know. You'll have to worry about it during this time. By the way, have you investigated the kid who saved Benjamin? This person's identity seems to be even more complicated. Li Zijun took a deep breath and said, "This man escaped from the Wasteland Gang. The underground black market has been spreading rumors that Link and his servants were the products of human experiments conducted by the Wasteland Gang's laboratory. After escaping to Shandu, he had a history of contact with the retired king of assassins, John. He is now the boss of the Jack Gang under the White Crane Hall of the Inland Water Gang in the slums. Besides, Wufa's strength isn't bad, he's not weaker than me today." Young master went to the slums to find him, and I went with him to take a look. I found out that this man has great ambitions, and his ability to tame beasts is amazing, comparable to the druids in the dark forest. An ear-piercing alarm suddenly rang out from the other end of the phone. "You take care of the security. Continue to investigate the Purple Dream Luo incident. As for Link, keep an eye on him, but don't target him. He's connected to John, and you can't handle him. I'm about to start the countdown to the start of the experiment. We'll talk about the rest when I'm back." Commander Mun then hung up the phone. Li Zijun hung up the phone and heaved a long sigh of relief. He reached out and knocked on the glass with his knuckles, signaling the soldiers outside to come in. The Jack Gang. Their territory had been taken over by 3 nearby gangs, so the atmosphere of the Jack Gang should be very gloomy. But at this moment, the courtyard was filled with laughter. Passers-by who didn't know what was going on would think that the Jack Gang had some happy news. They would never guess that they had lost their territory. Third brother looked at everyone's mood and sighed in his heart. The situation that was over for him was easily resolved by his boss. Even the unity of the Jack Gang now was even more exaggerated than the so-called victory period before. After dinner, everyone stayed in the rest area, watching TV while crossing their legs and picking their teeth with toothpicks. "It's almost 8 o'clock. Hurry, hurry. Oh yeah, it's the weekend today. Change the channel quickly, it's about to start." The hatchet men all took out small tickets from their pockets and focused on the Kazaya advertisement. Fu took off her apron, dried her hands, and walked out of the kitchen. She glanced around and found that everyone was watching the advertisement. She was confused. Why are they so engrossed in the advertisements? Third brother also took out a small blue bill and said, "It's not an advertisement. It's the beast fighting show in the Sand City at 8 o'clock. As soon as he finished speaking, the advertisement ended. The scene changed to a of a giant bear, tiger, and leopard, accompanied by a man's voice. "Welcome to your favorite show at the Sand Capital's Animal Arena. Chapter 80, the Sand Capital Coliseum. There's even a live broadcast on TV here." Fu pointed at the TV screen and said in a daze. When he was in the Wasteland Gang, he also knew about beast fighting. He often heard from the Wasteland Gang's mercenaries about how powerful and fast the wild beasts were. From the mercenaries' words, Fu knew that in every warlord-ruled territory of the Wasteland Gang, there were coliseums and combat arenas, which were bloodthirsty places. Every time the mercenaries returned to the territory after changing shifts, they would go there and gamble. He just didn't expect that Shadow was even more trendy and had directly started a live broadcast program. Not only live, but also betting. Third brother handed the blue receipt in his hand to Fu and said, "Look, this is the list of my bets. As long as you guess correctly, you can get the prize money according to the odds. The Colosseum in the Sand Capital is one with the fighting arena and the gambling house. There's a lot of things to do. This order of mine is about the competition of speed. After the host's nonsense, the TV will broadcast the competition of speed as soon as possible. Look at this black snake on the receipt, it's the beast I bet on, the lightning snake. He's already won the competition of speed twice in a row." In addition, Fu also saw the time of the bet, the time of the live broadcast, and the 2,000 wasteland coins. Link heard the shouts from the rest area and walked out of his office. "Boss, we're watching a live broadcast of a beast fight. Come with us." Fu called out to Link excitedly. "A live broadcast of a beast fight?" Link saw the blue notes in the hands of the thugs, and old memories flooded his mind. In the Sand Capital's Colosseum. It was the Freedom Federation's largest gambling den. It was a multifunctional entertainment industry that combined animal arenas, combat arenas, and casinos. Here, there were only things you couldn't think of, and nothing you couldn't see. Horse racing and beast fighting were the most basic events. The derived competitions on wild beasts' speed, strength, wisdom, flying, and diving were all wagers. The Colosseum was located in the northwest of Shandu. The river that entered the city was filled with sand and formed a delta. Later on, Moros, the economic lord of the Sand Capital, took a fancy to the place, which was adjacent to the slums and the uptown. He spent a lot of money to transform the place into a Colosseum and built a bridge connecting the two banks to the Colosseum. The Colosseum was even larger than the underground black market. After the game was officially released, tens of thousands of players would come here every day to try their luck. Link had been to the Colosseum before, but his luck had always been bad. He would often go in high-spirited and come out dejected. However, in this life, the animal arena would probably have to change its surname to Lin, the Lin from Gaojing. "Alright, then I'll take a look." Link found a seat and sat down. Fu quickly served him some snacks and herbal tea. Before Link could do anything, the treasure-hunting mouse sniffed the delicious food and scurried out of its pocket. It sprawled on the snack plate and began munching on melon seeds. The sand eagle in the bird's nest outside the house felt its boss's aura, and an inextinguishable light burst out in front of its eyes. It immediately stretched out its trembling wings, struggled out of the bird's nest, and fell to the ground with a squeak. The white-blade sea eagle in the nest cawed twice, and the feathers of the sand eagle were shaking. The sand sculpture gritted his teeth and crawled into the room. He suddenly felt relieved. "Phew, I finally got rid of this woman." If she wasn't smart enough to find an excuse to watch TV with her master, she would probably have to pay the public grain again in the dark. Link glanced at the sand eagle at the door, which was wriggling on its neck and body. It no longer had the sharp eyes and high attitude of a high-class eagle a few days ago. His eyelids were droopy and his body was weak. It was obvious that he had overindulged in sex. Link wondered if he should improve the eagle's diet tomorrow. Even the hellhound outside was not willing to be left out. It stuck its head out of the door and sized up the place with a pair of innocent big eyes. "All right, you can come in too." Link waved his hand, and the hellhound ran happily to Link, sticking out its tongue. It sat down obediently and watched TV. After a day of interaction, the hatchet men gradually accepted this setting. Boss Link was an extremely powerful beast tamer. All beasts that went through his taming would become extremely obedient and human-like. At this moment, the image on the TV suddenly moved away from the male host and turned into a live scene. The name of the first event appeared on the TV: the Land Speed Competition. Immediately after, the names of the participating animals and their past honors appeared. At this moment, the stadium was filled with high-spirited commentary. "This is the Sand Capital Colosseum channel, this is the Sand Capital Coliseum channel. What you're watching now is the first event of the night, the competition of land speed. Next, let's welcome the first contestant of this match, the silverback monkey. Soon, a silver-furred monkey appeared on the first track. It was being led by a professional beast tamer with a leather rope around its neck. The second contestant, the leopard. Roar! With a low growl, a ferocious leopard appeared on the screen. Link could feel the wild aura of the leopard even through the TV. It was clearly an untamed beast. The beast tamer behind him threw a piece of fresh meat, and the leopard pounced on it and began to bite. The members of the Jack gang, who often dealt with wild beasts, could not help but grimace at this scene, as if they were fresh meat in the leopard's mouth. The hellhound glanced at the leopard on the TV, its eyes full of disdain, and its mouth made two pff sounds. Link smiled and patted the hellhound's head, trying to comfort it. He understood that the hellhound was scolding the leopard for being pretentious. The third contestant, Lightning Snake. As soon as the Lightning Snake appeared, everyone in the Jack gang's rest area was in an uproar. He waved the blue note with a small black snake printed on it and loudly supported, "The Lightning Snake will win." At the same time, the audience in the stadium on the TV screen also let out an earth-shattering shout. The scattered shouts gradually gathered into three words: Lightning Snake. In the image, a black-scaled snake twisted its waist as it went to the track it was assigned to, its tongue flicking out. There was no beast tamer behind the Lightning Snake, and it entered the arena through the passage. It seems that our Lightning Snake is still very impressive. I wonder if it can successfully guard the ring today. Let's wait and see. Next up is the fourth contestant. Let the holy light shine on the earth. Let us welcome the unicorn. With a horse-like neigh, an adult unicorn emitting soft holy light entered the racetrack from the tunnel. His large and clear eyes were like a mirror, making one's spirit and emotions calm. Let's welcome the last contestant of the land race, the gazelle of the fifth track. The gazelle hopped onto the track, and all 5 participants were in position. The racetrack was 2 kilometers in length. The first part was the 500-meter endurance climbing part, followed by the 500-meter curve technique, the 500-meter obstacle course, and the last 500-meter straight sprint. Moreover, every racetrack was independent of each other, so the animals would not interfere with each other. Just one event required a complex 2-kilometer track. There were more than a dozen similar sports in the Colosseum, so one could imagine the size of the venue. Teacher Han, now that all the contestants are in place, who do you think will win this time? Director Zhang, you're making things difficult for me. All 5 contestants had won the championship of the week. The Lightning Snake had won 3 championships, and the silver-backed monkey had won the championship for a week. They had never competed with each other before, so you're making things difficult for me. However, the bets have been closed just now, so we can take a look at the odds and see who everyone supports.